Before you go, quick shout out to Becca's List. If you've ever hired a vendor for your law firm and immediately thought, yeah, that wasn't it, this exists for you. Becca's List is a curated list of companies that work with law firm owners. No paid placements, no random recommendations, just real reviews from law firm owners who have already learned the hard way. If you want to see what's working for other firms and help us grow Becca's List to the largest place for law firms to find trusted answers, head to beccaslist.co and leave your first review today.
This is Maximum Lawyer with your host, Tyson Mutrux.
Welcome back to Maximum Lawyer Live. I'm Tyson Mutrux, and today we are talking about your health. This is a really important topic, something that I think that we overlook. The idea for this episode came from a podcast interview that I did with Danny Decker yesterday. Danny interviewed me and he asked me about why I talk so much about health, and because he said he was a little surprised whenever he came to the conference and how we had a strong emphasis on health, physical health, mental health, and all that. And it was a fun question. It was one that had actually not been asked before, but I wanted to go through and talk about that today because it really got me thinking over the last 24 hours about how we generally, as lawyers, we treat health as kind of like a nice to have, and not that it's a necessary thing to have. And I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. It is a foundational infrastructure for what we do. It's not a hobby. That's the other thing. It's like we kind of treat health like it's just a hobby. It's like something we do if there's time to do it. But if you really, really think about it, it's the infrastructure for dealing with our family. It's our infrastructure for running our firms. It's infrastructure for all of our hobbies. If it cracks, if it crumbles, everything built on top of it is really destabilized. If you don't have your health, you really have nothing. So I was kind of thinking this question last night, okay, what if health is separate from your law firm? It is not separate from your law firm, but it's actually the foundation of it, right? And so there's a lot. I think there's a lot to this too, and that's why I want to talk about. I want to kind of unpack it live on the show. Like if you think about that Marcus Aurelius quote, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts," I think is what it is, and the quality of your thoughts are not. The quality is pretty low if your health is bad. Think about it. I mean, let's say you have a cold, okay, just a cold, not like super being sick, like. Just having that cold can really affect everything that you're doing. I mean, that's just an example of how important health is, right? Think about you stub your toe, right? Think about the rage that goes through your brain in that moment. I mean, and that's just small stuff, right? That's just the small stuff. We talk about sleep, and sleep is one thing. And I told Danny too, the thing that I struggle with the most is sleep. It's something that my dad has always been the same way. Where my dad, whenever I was younger, and still to this day, got up early, stayed up late. Got up early, stayed up late. And I've tried to correct that. I have actually done a decent job according to my Whoop of that. I've lowered my Whoop age significantly over the last about 9 months or so, by about 5 years. So it's a significant reduction. I can do a lot better, but because if you think about sleep if you think about health in general, I mean, you can work out, you can eat healthy, you can do all the good stuff, do yoga and everything. You can make sure your mental health is good. But if you don't sleep, that ruins everything. Sleep is really the most important thing. If you look at like sleep deprivation, it leads to reduced cognitive performance, lower reaction times. You have impaired judgment. Really important things as a lawyer: impaired judgment. Reaction time. You may not think that reaction time is important, but if you're in litigation, reaction time is extremely important. Cognitive performance is important for all of us. Every one of us, really, really important. So when it comes to the things that we do, those margins matter. And if you think about, I don't know, for some reason that makes me think of like Formula One. Like Formula One, I love Formula One, and it really comes down to seconds, like if fractions of a second. They're always looking to carve off a fraction of a second. So I know a lot of you, for some of you, I'm talking to people that are like, that's what you're doing. You're ultra optimizing things, like the Jeremy Danielsons of the world. You're trying to optimize every little thing. For the others of you, I may be talking to people that you need to make significant changes, right? So I'm really talking to all of you. And I've written out a list of questions. Like another question to maybe ask is like, so like when you've underslept or you're stressed, how does that show up in your leadership? Yeah. Because I know that whenever I'm that way, I can tend to be a little short with people, right? That's not the greatest way to lead. Okay. If you are, trying to lead by example and you are not optimal, you're not really going to be able to lead by example. Okay. So you really, really have to get that sleep. Okay. And another way to look at it is like, think about your last bad decision that you made. All right. Were you rested? Were you calm? Were you clear? Or were you, maybe you were exhausted? Maybe you're a bit more reactive. Like, so really think about that last time that you made that last bad decision. I think it might get you to think, okay, maybe I need to adjust my thinking on this a little bit. And this is, for some of you, I hope this is a little bit of a wake up call where I know before I made significant changes to my diet and and working out and everything else, my health, I really focused more on my health. I was just coasting. I kind of needed a little bit of a jolt is what I needed. I wish someone would have shaken me at like 28 and said, "Hey, get your shit together. You got to get this together." Because I was working on the business so much. I was not focused at all on my health. I was focused way too much on the business, and my health suffered for it. Luckily, it wasn't too late for me, and so I'm hoping for some of you it's the same. Okay. There's another thing that I was kind of thinking about too is like just there's something called in business the law of diminishing returns. And I think that there is a point where as overworked attorneys, we tend to do this a little bit where we will work our butts off. But I think there's a certain point where the more input that you put into it, it's going to produce less output. Okay. So I think we probably violate this principle daily where we keep just trying to beat it to death and just keep going and keep going and keep going. I remember back in, early days of the firm where I was up till 3 a.m. working on things. I'd say probably once I got to about 7 o'clock, everything between 7 and 3 a.m. was probably things that probably had to get redone or the quality of it was not great. If I'm being completely honest, it just probably was not great work product. So once you get to a certain point, whenever you're exhausted, or maybe you just put in so many hours lately, you're just kind of cooked. Maybe it's time to step back a little bit and refresh. I know that Justice, she's done a really good job of putting like rest time on my calendar, which I think is kind of cool. Not something I asked for. It's something I think she may have recognized that I needed, where, you know, on a Friday morning, there was one day within the last few weeks where like they said, you're just not working tomorrow. I thought that was kind of fun. So maybe ask yourself, at what point does another hour at the office stop producing meaningful value? Like when we were prepping for Max LawCon, I remember Jason Selt, he and I were talking, and his whole idea was like, how do you leave the office an hour earlier and get to the office an hour later each day? Like, how can you design your life for that? I think that's a really, really interesting thought experiment, and also incredible if you can pull that off. I think that is a really, really interesting thing, because I can tell you between the hour of 4 to 5, don't typically produce a lot of great work. I just don't. That's why we try to stack meetings for me later in the day. That way I'm not trying to produce work because my work product, the things I'm producing, I'm just not as good. I'm better in the mornings than I am in the afternoons. I know that about myself. And so I try to put meetings that I've got to have till later in the day. That way I'm not having to produce things. I can still communicate just fine. I can still talk with people just fine. I have a meeting just fine. But actual work product is not helpful. Okay, so this next question I'm going to ask you is going to hit some of you really hard. So be ready for it. And here it is. Is grinding actually courageous like you think it is? Or is it lack of strategic discipline? Okay. So you think your grinding is I'm being a hero, I'm being courageous. But are you actually just not being disciplined? Are you really not being focused on the things you should be focusing on? It's really, I think that's a really tough pill for some of you to swallow. Okay. It's a tough pill for me to swallow sometimes too. So not just me. I think a lot of us have that same problem. Okay. That's not just you. I mean, it's a lot of us have that same issue. There's a Seneca quote that I pulled for this. It's not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. How about that? That's a spot on quote for the situation. And I think that a big part of this is that health gives you the discipline to stop when stopping is strategically smarter. Like if you really think about it, if you are on top of your game, like you're feeling good, you're happy, your health is there. Like think about it, it is much easier to be disciplined than otherwise. Like think about how easy it is to shut down the day just because you're not feeling well, or maybe your back hurts, or you name the excuse. But when you're on top of your game, discipline is so much easier. It's such an easier thing. You have no excuses at that point. So why don't we remove those excuses, right? Why don't we, instead of picking up that donut, which I love donuts, trust me, I love donuts. My favorite breakfast food, maybe my favorite food actually. But instead of picking up that donut, maybe pick up a protein bar or pick up a banana, something that's a little healthier. And here's something that I've been kind of playing around with lately is, all right, go with something healthier, not healthy. So baby steps. So go with something healthier. So let's say you're going to have a dessert. Maybe you have something that is not as much sugar, not as much fat, something like that. So it's still bad for you, but just not as bad for you. So incremental steps, baby steps. That's what matters. All right. Oh, something else I meant to bring up too, because I'm kind of looking at my notes here. Something we've not looked at or talked about is how exhaustion can create rework, and rework is something that kills profit. So, I mean, just think about it. Take yourself out of this for a second. Let's say you've got a stressed out, overworked, tired, not getting sleep employee. Okay. Which we have actually had recently. We had to part ways with, unfortunately. That's just one of those things where we gave plenty of opportunities and she just couldn't figure it out. But the amount of work that we had to do, rework that we had to do, was tremendous. We had redoing the things that she had done improperly or not done at all. Really, it's exhausting for the team. So exhaustion by itself can create a lot of rework. And that's something that you have to really keep an eye on. All right. So what is one activity? So think about this. What is one activity you're doing out of habit that your healthier self would eliminate? Okay. What is one activity you're doing out of habit that your healthier self would eliminate? So kind of picture yourself. We got two selves. Healthy Tyson, unhealthy Tyson. Okay, what would healthy Tyson do in this situation? What would unhealthy Tyson do in this situation? And just by labeling it or naming it or looking at it in that context is going to go pretty far in allowing you to separate yourself from the situation and actually make that better decision. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about family and being present and the hidden cost of being stressed out. Stress is one of those things that it does not compartmentalize. And this is one of the points I was talking about with Danny yesterday. And stress doesn't care if you're at the office or if you're at home. And that's why this is all so important. You can't I remember hearing this thing where someone said, when I get home, I kind of visualize myself hanging my stress on a hook or something like that. And that way when I'm at home, I'm present. Now years later, I don't think that's possible. I think I think it's a fun little mental trick that might work a couple times, but the reality is that stress does not compartmentalize. We wear stress in many different ways. It is not something that you can just easily turn off. Okay. Stress migrates. Stress migrates from your house to work to house, to jujitsu, to taekwondo, to the sporting events, to the bowling alley, you name it. I'm just coming up with places at this point. But what happens at the firm bleeds into the dinner table. What happens at home when it comes to relationships bleeds into the courtroom. It is not something where it just stays where it started. It spreads. So when you walk through the door at home, are you physically present but mentally elsewhere? Okay. Is that something that, because this could be a red flag, it could be a one-time thing, or this could be something that, okay, is this something we need to deal with, right? This could be a sign of chronic stress. That's something that elevates cortisol. Elevated cortisol, it affects your mood, it affects your patience, your emotional regulation. There are a lot of things when it comes to cortisol that you want to try to keep under control. And so chronic stress can be a major thing that causes the rising cortisol. So another thing, and I talked about this, I had this conversation with a guild, whenever it was a guild member. And to be honest, I don't think she liked me bringing this up, but whenever I said it to her, but I think it's something that she probably needed to hear at the time. And the question is something along the lines of like, what example are you modeling for your daughter? Right. So for those of you that don't have daughters, you have boys or you have both, like what example are you modeling for your kids about work or about health, you name it, about relationships? And that's a really important lesson. Like the things that you do, your kids are picking up. Those of you that have kids, you understand. Those of you have little tiny kids, maybe you don't understand yet, but you will, trust me, once they can start talking. They see everything that you're doing. So they see if you are eating potato chips on the couch, watching TV every night. They also see if you are going to the gym. Like they see those things. They see the things that you're eating. They see the things that you're saying or hear the things that you're saying. So all of this really, really matters. So the point of this is, one of the points, if you win in the firm and lose your family, is that really success? Okay. Is that imbalance really worth it? It's probably not, at least not for me. I think that those of you in the association, you're not okay with that. You wouldn't be okay with winning in the firm and losing in life. You wouldn't, because it's all tied in together. It's all related. All right. So here is a question it's going to be another pointed question that I think some of you may have a little bit of a struggle with, but what would your spouse or kids say your relationship with work looks like? And I don't think that a lot of you are going to get the answer that you want. You're really not. I think that they're going to give you, mommy or daddy spends too much time at the office. Those are types of answers. And I don't think that's going to make you very happy. So if you think that may be the answer, then you may need to make some adjustments. If not, if you're doing the right thing, good. Kudos to you. Very good. I love to hear that. And there are a lot of people doing really good things. So I don't want to make this too judgmental of an episode, because by the way, I make many of the same mistakes that I'm talking about in this episode. That's why I'm talking about it. So it's a nice reminder for me as well. All right. So now let's turn the corner on this a little bit and talk about health as a competitive advantage. because we're now in a world where there's AI, there's been automation forever at this point. You've got marketing tactics that are accessible to everyone. I think health could be that differentiator, one of the differentiators. We're talking about Formula One earlier, shaving off just a fraction of a second to win. Clear thinking, emotional regulation, strategic patience, things like that could be really, really important. Could be a major differentiator. So like, what if that edge isn't some other marketing funnel, right? But it's more of a regulated nervous system. Okay. I think that could be a big part of what our future is going to be, is having, because just go on the internet and just scroll for a little bit and see that there's a lot of crazy going on out there. There's a lot of crazy, and you're not going to hire those crazies. You're not. But if you appear on camera, well regulated, you're a clear thinker, you can communicate effectively, you look healthy, which is, I think, I'll be frank about this. I think looking healthy is also a differentiator, can be a differentiator. But if you're that person versus a lot of the crazy stuff that we see out there, I don't know about you, but I'm going to hire the person that walks the walk and talks the talk. I just am. It is very, very hard for me to, take business advice that from someone that's had several failed businesses, right? The same thing comes. I'm not going to take diet advice from someone that is not healthy, right? So, same thing comes with attorneys, right? So, if you walk the walk and you talk the talk, people are going to be more likely to want to hire you. Let's kind of think about it as a competitive advantage. There's something else that Danny asked me about, and it's do you have a morning routine? And I said, I've tried all that. I don't. I think what's more important is that you have like more of a structured week where you get in the things that you need to get in. And another thing is, like I said, maybe more important, instead of like having a list of things that you're supposed to do every morning, that maybe the things you shouldn't do. Like for example, eat a donut. You shouldn't start the day by eating a donut. Like maybe you shouldn't start the day by checking your email, things like that. To me, those are more important. I don't think you should try to come up with some miracle morning. I think that's a great book, by the way. It's a really good book. I think it gives you some things that you can do throughout your day. But what is the structure of your week look like? What does it say about your standards? Because high performers and high performing leaders, they do prioritize the things that matter. They prioritize sleep. They prioritize working out. They prioritize clarity in mind. Okay. And not because it's something that looks good on Instagram, but because it actually fuels execution. That's the reality of it. So another way of looking at this is that your health is something that it multiplies what you can do. And poor health, on the other hand, it adds friction to everything you do and slows you down. Okay. So if your competitors train like athletes for their businesses, like think about that. So think about if your competitors are out there and they are training like athletes, like for their businesses, because athletes, they spend all week. Like if you think about Olympians, right? They spend years and years training for one event, one thing. And think about if like your competitors did that. What if you did that? Let's say your competitors did it and you didn't, are you going to win still? Probably not. Okay. Probably not. If you train and they don't, who's going to win? You are. I'd put my money on you every single freaking time. Okay. There is a massive, massive compounding effect of having daily and weekly habits. There just really are. These small daily behaviors, they compound like interest does. It really does. So if you think like what are, say, like 20% health habits that give you 80% of clarity and energy, if you think about that. And you can do the same thing. You can do this with all parts of your life, or when it comes to work. Like what are those 20% of things, habits you can do for the firm that will give you 80% of, the benefits of maybe revenue or increased profits, productivity. You can kind of do this with all parts of your life. But if you can kind of figure those things out and then do those things, they will compound over time. Here's something else to think about. If you improved your health by 10%, what would improve at the firm? Okay. Because I'm trying to make this very clear to you how important this is. So let's say it's sleep. Let's say you improved your sleep by 10%. What would improve at the firm? I think quite a bit would probably improve at your firm just by increasing your sleep by 10%. Mine probably needs to be increased a little bit more, but 10%, I'll take 10%. Incremental growth is important. I mean, you're probably gonna make better hiring decisions. You're gonna have better strategy. You're probably gonna have calmer negotiations if that's something you have to do with your, like, let's say you're in litigation. You're probably gonna make less mistakes. You're probably gonna have more patience with your team members. So that's just one thing. That's just one thing we're talking about. That's not even talking about, let's say you worked out. Let's say you just increased your working out by 10%. If you're at 0%, it's gonna have to be different, right? If you're doing 0% working out, we're gonna have to actually do something. So let's say you added a 30-minute workout to your week and you started losing a little bit of weight. Okay. You start to feel a little bit better. You're gonna probably sleep a little better, which is gonna help you with the other things too. That's part of it too. You're gonna feel more confident, which means you're probably gonna be better at closing those deals or negotiating or you name it. Okay. Compounding health equals compounding profit. I would bet money on it. Absolutely. So what single habit, if you fixed it, would make everything else easier? That's something to focus on. All right. That's enough. All I have for today. Hopefully you got something from this. I hope that you understand that health is an infrastructure. Without it, everything else weakens. Okay. Overwork is something that creates diminishing returns. Strategic rest fuels sustainable growth, even if that means taking naps throughout the day. Your body and your mind are the operating system of the law firm. They just are. You got to upgrade the system. You got to regularly maintain the system. Okay. So if you really want, a strong law firm, a strong marriage, a strong relationship with your kids, you want to be present while you're parenting, you want to be a clear leader, then health isn't optional, it's foundational. So you really need to start there with your health. So, and then build from there. If you do that, you're going to watch everything else get a lot stronger. I promise you. So, well, thanks for watching this show. Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out beccaslist.co so you can find the best vendors for you. Find out who to avoid too. That's another benefit of it. And then check us out in the association. Go to maximumlawyer.com. We will be seeing everybody next week. See you.